Hello, homies, and a very warm welcome to Homeopathy Hangouts. Today, I'm so excited to introduce our guest to you, Dr. Gaurang Gaikwad in India. Welcome to the show, Gaurang.
Thank you, Eugene, for having me in this platform.
It is so lovely. I have seen your name so many times. I actually first saw your name when I was doing some research on my interview with Dr. Rajan Sarkar over a year ago. And I saw a few interviews that you did with him. And that's when your name popped up. And then I just kept on hearing your name everywhere I went. And I was like, I have to get this guy on my podcast. So it's lovely to have you here. Can you tell us a little bit about how you were first introduced to homeopathy?
My story is actually quite interesting. It's actually by default that I joined homeopathy, just like many other homeopathic colleagues. So I actually come from a very interesting background, which means that both my parents are eye surgeons in India, in Mumbai, and fairly good eye surgeons in Mumbai. And I was born there. And so from my childhood, I kept seeing these kind of I was like their coolie or like their driver and everything, who would just do all the work in the eye camps, check people's eye. Even though I was like 10th standard or 11th standard, they would take me to different villages, do the eye camps. So from childhood, I was always involved with these kind of things. However, at some point, I was not interested in any of this. So I said, I don't want to do all these kind of things, and I'm not so interested. I joined, gave a competitive exam. I got a good admission in one of the colleges in Mumbai here for dentistry. In India, it's very, 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 in today's times, it's very competitive to get a seat in a kind of a very prestigious institute, especially we are talking about medical seat here. It's very competitive, as you already know. So the exams are very competitive in that way. For every 1 mark, there is about 1,000 of people waiting on the list.
Wow.
So I got this seat in a dental college, but I was not interested in dentistry also. So my father and my mother, they said that, okay, you see for dentist, you see for medical. Meanwhile, also fill up the seat for homeopathy. Just like that. Just sit, just so that, you don't sit at home. I said, okay, just to fill, I can fill up anything. If you tell me to do anything, I'll just fill it. I was like a 16-year-old boy that time. So I just filled up. And it took a lot of time for the admissions to start. But I got the admission in homeopathy very soon because my marks were fairly high for homeopathic seat, and I got in. And I got in and I saw that again, when I went into the homeopathic college in Mumbai, I wasn't very interested because they were talking about organon and vital force. And I was like, what is vital force? And we used to really make a lot of fun of it. Imagine. So finally, at some point, after seeing all of this, I said, okay, let me just try this homeopathy for some time, 6 months, 1 year. By 1 year, I wasn't interested in it at all. That's where my life changed. I met one of my first teachers who's now in the US and who's actually, according to me, in the top 3 homeopaths that I've seen in my life. And I've seen quite a few. That is Dr. Vijay Vaishnav. I don't know if you have already taken his interview or taken his podcast interview. He's the person, if I was you. So I saw him for the first time. I saw his work. I saw the way he was doing his work, his teaching, his clinics. And I clearly knew the moment I saw him in next few hours that I wanted to do something like him. That's how I became a homeopath. And then I never saw back. After that, I was a changed person. People say that I was possessed. I was a different person. So people who know me before I met him and after I met him, they say, this is not the same person we knew. So it's something like that.
What was it about him that you felt inspired you? What was it that made the click for you?
A lot of things, no? As a young guy, when you see a person like Dr. Vijay Vaishnav, a person who is so humble, so evolved, so dedicated, and who's treating very complicated cases with humility. And he was probably one of the most phenomenal teachers I've ever seen. He actually can write with both the hands, left and right.
Wow.
Lecture when he gave to us as a first year student, I remember he was treating chamomilla. And one man asked him, that, what is this mortification? One student called up, said, sir, what is mortification? So Vijay Vaishnav called him, come here. And he just slapped him. Fuck! And he said, why did you hit me? He said, now the feeling that you're getting is mortification. He'll never forget feelings from mortification. So he was an absolute phenomenal teacher during that time. So yeah, everything about him. And you should also interview his wife, who according to me also is one of the top teachers in the world, Dr. Daksha Vaishnav. She's you can say, a homeopathic gynecologist. She must have cured about thousands of infertility cases in India. Now she's also based in the US with him. Both of them are, I would say, the homeopathic couple in my eyes. So that's, by looking at them, is how I was inspired. And I felt maybe I could do something like that.
Wow. And I've been following you on Facebook for quite a while, and it sounds like your journey that you took after your homeopathic training was quite different to most other homeopaths in India. Can you maybe talk to us a little bit about that? You did this great post a little while ago, and I thought I have to ask you about that.
Yes, it's an interesting question. So what happened is that, and I'll just go forward with, after I saw Dr. Vijay Vaishnav, and he took me under his wings, and I was with him for about 3.5 years in the college. And I stayed with him. He really taught me Boric Materia Medica, Clark Materia Medica. And he would famously tell me that, if you want to learn case taking, just read the entire Kent repertory page by page, and you will know case taking better. And I was very fiery, a little more than I am right now. Right now, I'm a little more calmer, a little bit more relaxed compared to how I was that time. I was very hot-blooded, very fiery. I felt that I have to do it. I wanted to be the best, that kind of state. So that's when I met him, and he really took me under his wings and showed me the direction more than anything else. Towards the end of my studies, we have a 5.5 year college here in India. It's called as 5.5 year, where you have 4.5 year studies and then 1 year internship. Now, the education system is not the best anywhere in the world in homeopathy, as you already know. Towards the end of it, Dr. Vijay Vaishnav had to leave the college due to some certain situations that happened, and he then shifted to the US. And I was then, at that point, I thought, what should I do now? Because the person who got me into homeopathy, and I learned everything, what do I do now? So he told me that, Gaurang, this is the time now that you probably can go to more people to learn from, because you are now an intern. You are probably going to go into internships, so you could do. So I said, can you find out some people that you suggest me? So that's when he told me two people's name. He said, go to Dr. Sankaran. And it's very interesting that why would he tell me to go and meet Dr. Sankaran, because their approach is totally different.
Yeah.
So he said, no, you go to him. There's a lot to learn from everyone. I said, okay. And then he told me, go to Calcutta. And he told me, go and meet Dr. Sarkar. Dr. Sarkar was non-existent that time. People didn't know him. So just imagine that, just a random name. I said, Calcutta? Calcutta is in the eastern part of India. It's close to Bangladesh. And Mumbai is more here, closer to this part, Arabian Sea. And it's a different culture altogether, different city, different culture, different language. It's totally different language. So if you go there, you have to know a different language. I learned, obviously, after that. So my first journey was to go to Dr. Sankaran, actually. So I met him in the OPD, in a place in the college where he would see 80 patients in 3 hours. That's when I met him for the first time. And I remember...
OPD is like outpatient department, hey, just for our listeners.
Yes, outpatient department. And, I didn't know much about him. So I just went just like that, and I was just seeing what he's doing. And I saw him do things which normally you don't think Dr. Sankaran would do. For example, seeing 80 patients in 3 hours is not something that you would relate with.
You would not know. It's not the first thing you would think of for him at all.
Yeah, but I was very amazed, because I felt, if this person can do this kind of thing, again, I can do something like that. And the first thing I saw, and it's an interesting anecdote, is that when I saw him for the first time, people told the OPD timing is 9:30. So I reached at 9:30. I went inside and there was no one. So I asked, where is Dr. Sankaran? Where is the patients? And he said, no, Dr. Sankaran already left. He comes at 7 o'clock. Yeah. So when people come, he already left. So this also taught me a lot about timing and being on time and punctuality and doing things before time, actually. So that's how I met him for the first time. I for the first 3 or 4 months, I saw about maybe 500, 1,000 cases. I took a lot of cases for him. So it was like a charitable setup. I would go take the cases and then I would present him. And he would actually not talk too much. That's about him. He would just look at the case, ask 1, 2, 3 questions to the patient if you want to. And then he will just confirm the remedy, whichever he plans to give. And he would give, and the results were quite interesting, and they would be quick. So I was quite amazed. And you won't believe, at the end of 6 months, he finally looked at me, because there was no one else in the... He said, what's your name? After 6 months. So I said, my name is Gaurang. So he said, okay. Gaurang, many people come and go. Many people come, they want to see what I do, and then I don't see them ever again. But you're one of the few who comes and who waits and who sees what you're doing. So after 6 months, now I feel this is the right time. I could now guide you. This is how he now started taking me under his wing. So it's a very interesting thing. I and almost every real student has to actually kind of earn the right to learn from real good classical practitioners of homeopathy. That's what I saw, that real teachers, they don't give it so easily. They want to find this very special student to whom they can give their special group of knowledge. From
Well,
there,
it makes sense because they would have worked so hard to get the knowledge that they have. It's an energy exchange. You're not just going to give away freely something that's taken you so much money, so much time, so much dedication, so much sacrifice, to just give it away willy-nilly to somebody who's not going to put that energy back in. So it makes complete sense. And I mean, you two have known each other for many years now. So it's really fun listening to this story. And I've seen many interviews you've done with him.
Now that I'm talking to you, I could actually write a small book about all the stories that I had with all these different people.
You should. Because you know what? Of all the interviews that I do, I have to say, for me personally, the ones that I like as the human interaction. And there's actually, so when you said about Dr. Sarkar, Kate Lambrick, who is somebody that you met, she told me the story of how she met you. And they were in India for 2 years, and they, like two of the only like European or Westerners there. And she was in a cafe, and then you walked in and you're like, what are you guys doing here? And that you guys have been such good friends ever since. Yeah. So those are the types of stories. How did people find this? Maybe that's why I love being a homeopath. I love hearing people's stories.
Yeah, I totally understand. That's why I think that this platform that you've made is special, because the homeopathy is not only about keynotes and rubrics or some strange kind of symptom and prescription, but there are many stories behind this that really make it so beautiful. And that's what I actually even I try to do, because wherever I go in different parts of India or wherever I go in different parts of the world, I also try to find the history and how the homeopaths were there, for example, in Paris or wherever. How did Hahnemann actually practice towards the last part of his life, or how Muir did his work in Brazil, or how someone like the Russian homeopaths did their work during that time. So it's very interesting to know their history and how they saw life. Coming back to your earlier question, is that after that, I kind of went to Calcutta, and that's where I met Dr. Sarkar and all other really classical homeopaths in this side of Bengal, West Bengal, which is actually, you can say, at that point, the holy grail of homeopathy, because almost every street has 2 or 3 homeopaths. So
amazing.
It's crazy. So if you get a chance, Eugene, the one place you should come to India sooner is Mumbai, and you're welcome to meet us here in Mumbai and in West Bengal. That is where people practice. Every street has a homeopath.
Well, Kate has actually told me that they're planning to go to India next year. And I said to her, I want to come along because I don't want to go by myself. I'd like to go like with other homeopaths. And so Kate has promised me that we will have a trip to India next year. So, but you also, can you tell us a little bit about Dr. Sarkar? Because she just quickly told me a few little things about him and how you kind of helped to get him on the map and get his work well known. Because it sounds like he was doing incredible work, but nobody was really knowing much about it.
Yes. So I think that's, again, one of the very special coincidences and special blessings of the Almighty that connects all of us like-minded people together. So from here, Dr. Vijay Vaishnav told me, you go to Calcutta. So and an interesting part is, in India, you have to finish a particular internship and only then you get the certificate. It's a little, you can say, bureaucratic. Okay. Just like the degrees are bureaucratic because it's a proper degree in India. So I thought that, okay, I can go, but I didn't want to finish my internship. I was a little bit of a rebel. I've always been a little bit of a rebel. So I felt that I don't want to do this internship, which I felt was not happening in the right way. People were not really getting to learn in the real sense. So I felt I want to go and learn homeopathy really classical way. And my teacher was not here, Vijay Vaishnav. So he said, you go there. So I then met Dr. Sankar and I said, I'm going to Calcutta for a few months to learn. I don't know where. I don't know if they accept me. So I will see if it goes well or else I will come back. So Dr. Sankaran, he smiled at me. And then you know how it is. And he said that many years back, I also went. And it is good that someone from the younger generation now has the courage to go and spend a lot of time there. And especially when you don't know where you're going, you're at the right place. He said, I remember that. And I laughed a lot. And we both laughed a lot after that. And then I took a train, and then I just suddenly realized that, oh, if I have to go, and this is when I'm like 20-year-old, and I just realized that if I have to go to this place and there will be a lot of patients and a lot of people, I have to learn a language. It's called as Bengali. It's a different language. So I said, but I don't know Bengali. So then what I did was I quickly started talking to people on the train, picked up some lingo, some Bengali language. As soon as I reached West Bengal, which is about 24 hours train there from Mumbai, and I tried to then in the next 7 days pick up this language very quickly from the books, all these kind of things. And I started then finding Dr. Sarkar because we didn't have any address. You have to understand that 12 years back, everything was not very, very Google friendly, and I was not very techno savvy. I'm still not. But that time I was really, really bad. And I went there. I started finding Dr. Sarkar. I didn't know his first name. He said, go to Dr. Sarkar. Sarkar is as common a name in West Bengal as you can imagine Tom is in the US or in Australia. It's such a common name. So it's, again, in every street, you will find one
You'll
Sarkar.
find Dr. Smith.
Yeah, something like that. So I didn't know what to do. I said, okay. Then I started finding, because there are many Dr. Sarkars, many. Some of them are homeopaths, some of them are other doctors. It's a very common name in this part of the world. So I started finding, and then I kind of found my way into a college, which is now, and that's also another place you should go, National Institute of Homeopathy in Kolkata, whose teacher there at that time was one of my mentors, Dr. Shubhas Singh, who's now the director of National Institute of Homeopathy, who also I will try to connect you to, who's an amazing person. Yeah. And I saw him, and I was this guy with this huge haversack. I'll try to send you a photo of me. That time, someone clicked. So I was this guy with a huge haversack, which had 2 pair of clothes and all different materia medicas: Boric, Allen, N.M. Chaudhary, Dunham, Clark, Farrington, every, and heavy. You can imagine, like almost like I'm going to go to Mount Everest. Imagine something like that. And I go into this place, which is like a huge building with about 3,000 people standing, sleeping on the roads like this, and everyone waiting for their turn in this hospital, National Institute of Homeopathy. So I go inside, and they say this is a government hospital, and you go and meet this teacher. And I met Dr. Subhash Singh, and Subhash Singh looks at me, and he tells me, "Kahan se aaye ho, bhaiya?" Means, where have you come from and where are you going? Have you taken a bath? Have you had some food? I said, now that's a good question. So you won't believe, he didn't know me. He told me, okay, I will ask all the patients to wait. He took me to his house. He asked his wife, this guy has come from Mumbai. He's a crazy guy. Give him some food. And his wife looks at him, cooks some food, gives me, and I am eating after 24 hours. And then he takes me. Can you imagine such kind of people exist?
No. Unbelievable.
I go there, and he then starts telling me, just see what I'm doing, because they are talking in Bengali language. Very quickly, in 2 minutes, he's prescribing to a patient like this. And I'm seeing this, and I'm getting inspired. Then I ask him that I hear about Dr. Sarkar, where I can meet him. So he said that he's now not in college and he's in another kind of place. And then I went and I saw a huge place again, and many patients and ambulances waiting outside a building. And I thought it's a hospital. And then I saw this man, Dr. Sarkar, who at that time, and I looked at him, and he was not at all friendly when I met him for the first time. He was very rude, and he just looked at me. I told him that I'm from Mumbai, and so Dr. Vaishnav sent me to meet you. And he just looked at me. And he looked at me from up to down for about 2 or 3 seconds. And then he said, okay, just stand here. And I looked who was behind him, and there were about 30 people waiting there. So I just stood there and just started watching what he's doing for the next 2 or 3 months, with him not even talking to me, not even teaching, nothing. Yeah. And then what he has an interesting way of doing is that while prescribing, he will constantly ask questions. Like, for example, a patient of gallstone comes, he will ask, okay, gallstone, sleepiness, after eating, tell me which is the remedy, just while prescribing. So no one answers. So I thought, if I can read the whole Boric and whole Kent, then he will take notice of me and he will teach me. So then I started at nights reading the whole Boric, whole Allen's, whole Kent. And that's how in about few months I started mastering it totally. And then he would ask this question, okay, gallstone, sleepiness, better by sleepiness after eating. So I would say, sir, felt Tories. And he will look at me like this, okay. And then again, after about 4-5 months of answering these kind of things, he said, you do one thing, beta means son. Okay. Beta, you do one thing, you come to my village where I see many patients and I can then teach you. Then he took me to his village. And that's how our journey of learning started. And that's how previously I didn't have a place to stay in this area in West Bengal and Calcutta. And then he invited that now you don't sleep on roads, because I used to very often sleep on the roads because I didn't have place. I probably didn't have too much of money. So he said, you come and stay with me. And he made me sleep in his room, in his house. And then the journey started where he took me under his wings. And for about 8 months, I was with him. And then many things happened. Then I made notes about what he does. And I wrote 3 books on him. And I invited him to connect to Dr. Sankaran. And that's where we started having a very special connection of different schools together. So it's been a very beautiful journey. It's very exciting. I'm not even taking breathing while you can imagine. It's really been very exciting.
I mean, I could listen to you all day. For one, you're an amazing storyteller. Two, that is some funny stuff in there for sure. And like really interesting. I've got these 3 incredible books of yours that you very kindly had sent to me via Kate. Thank you so much. And in some of them, you mentioned a little bit about these. That's why you said that obviously not in that much detail. That's why I think you need to write a separate book of all of this with all the funny like little stories in there. It's really interesting. And now I understand why, like with this Decoding Mental Rubrics book, how and why you understand it on such a deep level. I just quickly want to talk about this book because it arrived yesterday, but I was up till late last night reading through these books because they are fascinating. And you've really helped me understand a lot of the mental rubrics in so much better way. One thing that I really like that you do is, and this is, I think I like it so much because I am a language person. I love languages. I actually did Latin at school for 2 years. And I always feel like that's with the medical profession. If you go to a doctor and they say you have pericarditis and you're like, oh, it sounds like such a big word or whatever. And obviously it's a big thing. But if you just think peri, it's around, card is heart, and itis is inflammation. It's like inflammation around the heart. Or if you know what I always feel if you know the root word of things make a lot more sense. So like I was listening to your Veratrum lecture that you did on YouTube and you were talking about eccentric and the root word is center and they want to be like the center of attention. And that's what I love about this book is you've got the root word or the Latin or where a word comes from here, which makes it so much easier to understand. For example, the word haughty is one that we often use in homeopathy, and homeopaths are the only people on the planet that know what the word haughty means. If you ask any other normal person what that means, they don't know. But in your book, it says it comes from the root word haut, which is French, which means high. So if you then understand as somebody who thinks they're higher than somebody else. So any of our homeopaths who does not have this book yet, Decoding Mental Rubrics by Dr. Gaurang and Dr. Ramiz Chogli, I'm probably going to
Yes. Late Dr. Ramiz Chogli. He was with me in Calcutta. He died after 2 years. He had something that happened. So I wanted to, it took me 9 years to write this book, Decoding Mental Rubrics, because about this word origin is something that actually is an idea that Dr. Sankaran gave me, because Dr. Sankaran would teach repertory for about 20 years in the college, and he didn't teach that because he went to other things which inspired him. I used to ask him and I used to sit with him the whole day, see cases with him for about 7 or 8 years. So he told me that the only way to read repertory and understand repertory is understand the word origin of the word and then understand that word, go to the source books, go to the proving and understand what is the eccentricity of Veratrum album, for example, or what is the secretiveness which is there in Zincum also, in Thuja also, in Digitalis also, and in Ignitia also. What it exactly means, you have to read the proving. So yes, he was one of the biggest inspiration. My idea of this book was that I felt that my knowledge of repertory was not very good. And I felt that if your knowledge about something is not good, and if there is no book available on it, you know what to do then. You have to write something on it. You have to work on it. So then for my own sake, I thought that I could take one rubric each and I would start studying about it, understand every remedy there, understand how patients would talk there. So this is actually a collection of about 300, 400 rubrics, how patients' expressions are, what it
Mm.
means. And also I have added many of my experiences with Dr.
I like
Sarkar,
there was
Karan,
there's some
Dr.
nice cases in there as well. I
Yes,
really like
yes.
that because
So
it really
it's a
helps it to
interesting.
stick.
It's for people who really are interested in understanding the core meaning of every rubric.
Mm.
So I do believe that this book is now actually translated in French as we speak,
Uh-huh.
as I have a very good group of homeopaths from France, Belgium, and Switzerland who study with me. Also, just about a month back, translated in Russian in Moscow, and also translated just about a couple of months back in Brazil, in Curitiba. People have a lot of interest in learning this, so it's interesting.
That's very cool. And I mean, let's face it, our mind rubrics what makes homeopathy so incredibly fascinating. I can spend
Here,
all
I
day.
would like to mention you one more teacher because I learned from a lot of teachers, and that's what makes me who I am. Is one Dr. Milind Rao, who actually is late Dr. Milind Rao now, and I had the opportunity to understand what he understood about rubrics, and he was a head of an organization which is going to take the world by storm in the next 10 years. The organization is called as HHF, and they specialize in understanding metaphorical rubric meaning.
Yeah.
And based on Dr. Segal's method of mind rubrics, if you know Dr. Segal's method
Yeah.
I had a lot of fortune to stay with him for 6 months with Dr. Milind Rao and learn with him. And he was a special person. When he
Mm.
died, you won't believe, when he died, the entire street had about 5 to 10,000 homeopaths
Oh,
for whom he
wow.
had really kind of helped them grow. So they were all on the streets to see his last rites. So you can imagine how much difference he actually made. Some people,
That's amazing.
yes,
Is that the
yes,
one?
yes,
Yeah.
yes, yes. So this is one of the ones. The best book by Dr. Segal and the great Dr. Segal, I'm talking about Dr. M.L. Segal, is something called as ROH series. Revolution of Homeopathy. So this is about 12 volumes which are available in New Delhi. You can just Google about this. But this
Okay.
is the best classic literature if you want to understand Dr. Segal's method, which again I had the great fortune to learn. So the thing also that I highly recommend a lot of my friends here is read and understand every approach, because then you will know in which case which approach to use and how all approach connect to each other.
Well, this could very quickly turn into just a mind rubrics podcast because I have so many questions. You know, there's so many rubrics in there that I know that I don't understand the full capacity of it of. And I know that there's different ways, like you can kind of use some of the rubrics in a bit more of a looser way than what it is. So for example, I know, like, I'm just thinking of desire to be magnetized, like that rubric. Like, what does it actually mean? When would you use it? I've been told that, well, you tell us where would you use that
I'm
rubric?
sure you've been told. And typically in Kent repertory, there are very few remedies in that: calcarea, silica, and some more like magnesium. There are different ways of understanding this rubric. One of the ways which technically now homeopaths use is the idea where the patient comes and tells you that, doctor, my son is now getting older and I'm thinking of also making him a doctor or taking him to another kind of field. You suggest, no, because we totally depend on you. Whatever you say, we will do. If you tell us that take him here, we will do that, because we are totally mesmerized by you, doctor, because we want our son to be like you. You are our god, you are our everything, doctor. But if you tell me, we will do like this. So this is the idea, that we are so magnetized by you that whatever you say, everything. So this is the idea of understanding the kind of a deeper core meaning. That's calcarea. They are so kind of in that way, very naive, very grounded, very basic, that they depend on their doctor for everything.
Oh,
Typically,
that's
this is one way of
interesting. I was told it's like people who are really into like Reiki and like doing energy medicine and things like that. So that's very interesting. I haven't heard of that before. I
the
also
one
love
I'm telling you is
you're
very
very
classic.
good at dramatizing, because like your Veratrum lecture, you really went into character there and you make that remedy come alive. It's really fun to watch.
It's a lot of fun. Homeopathy is a lot of fun. So in whatever we do, we have to love what we do
Mm.
and have a lot of fun and joy while doing it. So it will be seen on your face and on your eyes, and that's how it should be.
It should be. I was actually, Luke Norland said to, because I posted in our Facebook group, these are my guests coming up. What questions should I ask them? And he said to ask the guests, if you weren't working as a homeopath, what job would you do? And I think for you should be on stage. But if you couldn't be a homeopath, what work do you think you would do?
It's true. I would probably be on stage, but I wouldn't know what I would do because actually, and to be honest, not many people actually know this, and some of people who would be listening to this would later on be, wow, we never knew this. Is that actually throughout my early part of my life, I was really good on stage. I was a very good dancer. I actually went to different countries to showcase my dance talent.
Wow.
I was very good at dramatics, so I was very, very good at on stage. I've done many dramas in my college or even before that. I was a general secretary in my college, which is a fairly big post where there's election and all that kind of thing. So I would lead the entire college into organizing and doing some special stuff. So I think I would do something interesting. I think so.
Definitely.
But
I can see
as
that.
as the great Dr. Vijaykar, the late Dr. Vijaykar once said, he was asked that, why did you choose homeopathy? And he said that, my friend, homeopathy is so divine that a person like you cannot choose homeopathy. Homeopathy chooses you.
Oh, that's nice.
So I think that homeopathy chooses people like you, me, and people
Mm.
like us to really connect because this is a very special science. We are actually a medium to do something very special for our
Mm.
patients, for our students. So, yeah.
That's so cool. I have a question for you that I was actually just this morning as I was getting ready, I was thinking that, the Indian homeopaths, they work so hard, such long hours. I mean, you hear these stories of them seeing so many people working ridiculous hours, writing all these books. I mean, you're so young, you've already put out all these books, you're traveling all over the world to go and lecture. Are you practicing what you preach and like having some balance in your life? Like, or are you just like working 24/7?
I try to. I try to. Try to. I'm not always successful, but some things which I was not doing about 4 or 5 years back, like probably removing 1 hour a day for workout or probably trying to balance, is not something I'm able to do perfectly well. But there is some kind of method to madness here. Some people, like homeopaths, they seem to thrive in chaos. So maybe I'm one of those.
I think I'm one of those too. People ask me, how can I do 8 interviews in one day? I'm like, oh, I just love what I
Yeah.
do. So yeah, it's thriving in the chaos.
And,
I
and,
love
and
that.
also when you don't do it, and when you do, I'm not part of this chaos of everything, you don't feel alive. You don't feel that you are into it. Although, if you want to close it down, you can easily close it down and relax and go somewhere. That's okay. But to feel alive, some people are born to do certain things. And I
Mm.
think that you and me and people like us, we should do what we are born here to do. And also
Definitely.
try to take care of oneself. But you can't go away from what you're born to do. That's not like, that's going
And I
away.
always feel like, because I'm always trying to get that balance and stuff. And it's like, well, it doesn't feel like work. So it doesn't feel like I get so much joy from doing it. So it doesn't feel like work. So Gaurang, I really want to chat about your new book as well. We haven't even touched on your other ones, which, by the way, the Nozos and Sarcodes one, it is so good. I was really excited to see some of the remedies in here. There's folliculitis, estrogen, parathyroid hormone. Sometimes it's really hard to find materia medica on these remedies, leprominum, OAN. I don't even know what that is.
So this is a remedy I use a lot. In India, the cases of osteoarthritis are so many that there has been a remedy which is proved, that is osteoarthritic nosode. I cannot practice without this remedy
Oh,
because a
wow.
large number of patients, we are giving osteoarthritic nosode 30 for about 2 days. And after few weeks, maybe the indicated remedy, whichever we prescribe. And this is really helping to stop the progress of osteoarthritis. And it is actually proved, and proving has been done, and a lot of writings also written by a classical homeopath like O.A. Julian. So these are all verified remedies which are amazing. I think that literature like that should be connecting to a lot of our colleagues because we can help a lot of patients. So
Very
it's a
cool.
very,
I
yeah.
really like the way that the book is written. Like for me, the layout of a book is really important because I think my mind is, because I do a lot of scan reading. I think I would probably be undiagnosed ADHD, like grabbing information here and there and just taking, like my brain knows what it needs and it will go and grab it. But this book, the way that it's laid out, I find it really easy to understand. So I really like this book. And you've got proving information here. There's rubrics in here as well. Really cool. So I am very excited to actually sit with this and just have a good read through it.
It's somehow my book on nosode sarcode is more popular than the other three books because it is a very hot topic and people want to use it in their practice because in many cases hormonal, endocrinological, pathological, where the typical remedies are not helping, cannot practice without using a sarcode or a nosode. So it's very popular. Also,
It's
Yeah.
It's got so many notes in. Oh, I can't see now. So many notes in here from Kate, because Kate sent me her personal copy, and I was like, "Oh my God, you are like an angel!" Because I would never, ever, ever send anybody my personal copy of any of my homeopathy books. They're
We
all
had to
like my
really
babies.
research.
I would never, but I'm going to send this one back to her afterwards, and then you got a copy. It's some really good stuff in here. I'm seriously impressed, and this is something that I can see would live on my desk in the clinic, and I would use on such a daily basis. But you know what's interesting you say about the arthritis in India, because the episode I did with Ranjan Balsari about arthritis, that was our most popular episode out of the first 150. It was our top episode, and it did so well. And I was really amazed by how hot a topic this is. And I think any episodes we have on cancer are the second most popular topics that we have. This is a great book. And then The Art of Repertorization, this one I had a look through last night as well. And I think this is one that I have to sit with and just work through all of it, because it's interesting, because I have radar opus that I use for my repertorization, but you look at a rubric and there'll be like hundreds in there. But then if you look at these older repertories, there's a symptom in there, a rubric in there, and there'll only be one or two remedies. And sometimes I think maybe I should just stick with like the older repertories.
For example, this is always there on my table, Fatak repertory. Without this, one cannot practice homeopathy. So
Yeah.
this is the repertories which I wanted to bring to life, because we don't have a really good book that explains how to use every repertories.
Yes.
Repertories like Fatak, Nair, Clark, repertories like even Boric repertory, Robert's Sensation, As If. These are very special classical books, and they will give you remedies that you cannot even imagine normally that you will get. So I wanted to bring it together. And that's the attempt with
there
this.
was a couple of just as I was looking through the book last night, like Anatheria muriaticum. I haven't even heard of that. And there was like another couple of remedies in there. I'm like,
Anantherum muriaticum, though, it's a very interesting remedy. It's for warts and many skin related issues, but there is a very interesting rubric there, which you will find very interesting. It's in Kent, and there's only one remedy, is monomania. If you have Kent in front of you. So there's a rubric, monomania wants to wear the same dress in a grotesque manner everywhere, which means Anantherum muriaticum will wear a kind of a clothes which are probably of the same color and will act in a very weird way and in an insane way and go to different places to show this off. So this is the
Do you
insanity.
know what? For monomania, one of the main remedies, because for my clients with my children with autism in my clinic, I use the rubric monomania all the time, but in synthesis, aloe is actually the main indicated remedy. So that is actually something that I use in clinic often, because always these kiddies with autism had loads of gut issues as well. So I find the remedy aloe good. I do have one where the boy will only wear the same pair of clothes every single day. And we're talking months and months on end. So it's almost falling off him. But I have never heard of this remedy. So I'm going to use this Anantherum.
Read it once. The proving symptoms you can read. So you will exactly know what it means.
Very, very cool. Can we talk about your new book as well? So you've got another one that's just come out.
So this book is very special because of two things. One is that during the COVID situation in the last 3.5 years, we had the opportunity to treat many acute cases. And when luckily we had the opportunity along with me. Thank you. This is the book. So along with me, many homeopaths had the opportunity to treat many acute cases, fever, pneumonia, different complicated cases. And I felt that our skill set in treating acutes is not as good as the old classical homeopaths had. Homeopaths like Clark, like Burnett, even Kent, we don't have that great skill set. And when I say we, it majorly also includes me. So I felt that we need to do something about it. So I took an opportunity to go through the entire homeopathic literature that we had, and I tried to collect materials for every condition like fever, cough, cold, diarrhea, pneumonia, joint pains, even post-COVID. And then I started treating many cases in India, in Brazil, in Russia, in Europe. And we were able to have some really good results here because we had the opportunity to treat these cases. And that's where I collected these cases and made this book. And then I also invited my colleagues to share their cases. So many of my colleagues' cases are there in this book. And so it's very special.
Right. And you have some online courses that you've put together as well. Tell us a little bit about that.
Going back with our idea of Sarkar is our new course which is coming, which I'm going to offer all of our colleagues who are now on the podcast, on Eugene's podcast. So you have to write that I had listened or heard or some kind of indication.
Mention the podcast, mention Homeopathy Hangouts.
The podcast so that I know that it's through you.
Yeah.
And so this is a new course. It's called as Homeopathic Strategies in endocrine and hormone diseases, because as you know, all across the world, we are treating cases. The cases of endocrine and hormone disease are increasing. The ovarian cysts, the ovarian tumors, thyroid, autoimmune thyroid,
Yeah.
diabetes, and other lifestyle diseases. So we put together this special certificate course, which is for 25 hours, 16 sessions, and we invite one of my teachers, Dr. Sarkar, Dr. Gajanan, Dr. Adil, and many others
Oh,
to
amazing.
talk about every of this topic and how to approach it. So it's going to start in mid-June, probably 20 June or something. It's going to be online. You can watch it again and again. So you will have the video to watch it on my website. So I invite all of you to join this. You have to write that you have heard Eugene podcast, and we will give you a special 25% discount.
Oh, that is so generous of you. Wow. Alrighty, guys, you heard it here. So mention Homeopathy Hangout podcast. That is a really generous discount. Thank you so much. And Dr. Adil as well, he's also been on the show. He is so lovely. That's some great lecturers, and that's going to be amazing. And yes, I love using the endocrine cycle. I did a lecture with Hilary Dorian a few years ago through CHE. And since then, it's because I only treat women and children. It's not often a woman leaves my clinic with, a progesterone or a follicular or pituitary gland or anterior pituitary, hypothalamus, pineal. Like there's some one of
So what I've
those.
done is, what we will be talking about is different topics, different disease, but also about how to use this remedy and what are the indicators of those remedies.
Cool.
And also indicators of also lesser known nosodes and lesser known sarcors, which we may not be using, and how to treat when cases are blocked. So it'll be interesting.
That will be cool, because you know what I don't use often is parathyroid. I saw that in your book as well, and I was thinking, I'm sure that's a remedy I need to learn a bit more about, because I don't actually know that much about that remedy.
It's very good for calcification, basically. So just yesterday, I had a case of a tumor and osteoarthritis, calculi formation. Think about parathyroid hormone, parathyroid 30.
Like say if there's like calculi in the gallstones,
For example, if a patient
kidneys,
is getting, for example, a patient is getting recurrent calculi in the kidney, and along with that has arthritis. So there are three remedies that you would want to think about. Number one is parathyroid 30. Another one is a remedy prepared from the renal calculi, that is calculi renalis.
I use that one, and calculi biliari as well.
Yes, calculi. And then you can then think about using a very deep nosode if these things don't work. But this remedy, parathyroid, we use a lot.
Ah, cool. Oh, I can't wait for your course. That's so exciting. Amazing. Now, Gaurang, are there any final messages that you want to leave our listeners with? And can you tell them where they can get hold of you?
The best way to get hold of us is just to write my email ID, that is gaurang@gmail.com, or my website is there, www.drgauranggaikwad.com. I really don't have many messages that I can give anyone, but I just want to share this with my colleagues, because I understand many of our colleagues are from the West on this podcast, is that I think that the potential of homeopathy is so special and so huge that one of my teachers used to say that a homeopath can fail, but homeopathy never fails. So take every obstacle as an opportunity to dwell more deeper into getting high skill sets of homeopathy, and go to classical books to really learn that. And this is coming from someone who's writing new books. Even then, I will tell you, the classics are the ones that you have to master, but you have to understand what it means. For that, you may have to use slightly newer books, but the classic books is the one. So that's about it.
Love it. It was so much fun to hang out with you. Thank you so much for sharing all these fun stories, all your knowledge. And so people can get your books through your website as well, hey?
Yeah, they can best way is to just email to me for consultation, for books, for courses. You will get all the details, or you can check my website.
Love it. Thank you so much. It was really fun.
Thank you.